How's it going, Diablo players? So while I was doing the Chain Lightning build, I figured I can just make a Ball Lightning build because these are almost using the exact same gear, and I have the Ball Lightning build guide here for you. However, one thing I want to say at the very beginning of this guide, unfortunately the Gravitational Aspect has been destroyed by Blizzard. I think this is actually an undocumented change, but you know, I couldn't really find it anywhere in the patch notes, but I might be wrong. So they changed the Ball Lightning Gravitational Aspect, so you can only have a maximum of 10 Ball Lightnings gravitating. And then it says whenever you cast another one, it's gonna increase the damage of all the other Ball Lightnings by 10%. However, I was trying and I couldn't really get any damage out of Ball Lightning, and I have to say, just having 10 Ball Lightnings floating around you feels just incredibly unsatisfying to me. That's why I took the build, and I took the one thing which is good about Ball Lightning: it actually has the highest attack speed frames for all Sorcerer skills. So I kind of made this more like a hidden lightning spear build. It is still a Ball Lightning build for the sake of being a Ball Lightning build, but I really tried hard to get any kind of damage out of Ball Lightning and I failed. That being said, this build is still capable of doing Infernal Hordes, it's capable of doing Tormented Bosses, it's capable of, you know, speed farming pits to like tier 80, and the footage you're seeing in the background right now is actually a tier 80 pit, but it won't go much further. I still have to say I'm a little bit disappointed, but maybe you can find some use of this guide anyway. Maybe they're gonna fix Ball Lightning, but at this point I think the 10% damage increase on that skill just seems to be bugged, or maybe it's just some additive damage increase which literally doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm just gonna say at this current state you cannot really use Ball Lightning to do damage itself, no matter how hard you try. Anyway, that's just a quick introduction of the Ball Lightning build guide here, and you can find the sections of this guide and the link to the planner and all my other build guides in the description down below as always. I will have Pit tier 80, I will have Tormented Bosses, and I have Infernal Hordes for you at the end of this build guide. And now without further ado, let's go into the skill tree. So taking a look at the skill tree, we just put 2 into any basic skill. We're not using any Firebolt enchantment, so this doesn't really matter at all. Then we put 1 into Chain Lightning into Greater Chain Lightning. Just helps us to get a little bit more Chain Lightning damage out of our Unstable Currents casts. Then we max out Elemental Dominance. 1 into Flame Shield. We max out Teleport into Shimmering Teleport. We get Ice Armor into Mystical Ice Armor. And if you're like struggling with resource, you can always distribute this into Shimmering Ice Armor if you want. Then we max out Glass Cannon, Ice Blades into Summoned Ice Blades, Lightning Spear into Invoked Lightning Spear, all the passives here, Conjuration Mastery, Familiar into Enhanced Familiar, pretty basic stuff. We don't need Invoked Familiar or Summoned Familiar because we're only going to have Fire Familiars cast by Unstable Currents, so we're really not getting any bonus out of these abilities here. Then we put 1 into Inner Flames and 3 into Devouring Blaze here for the extra crit damage, 1 into Permafrost, 3 into Hoarfrost for the extra damage to crowd controlled. Then we max out Synergies, we max out Evocation, 1 into Causing Currents, into Electrocution, 3 into Electrocution for the extra damage reduction. Then we put 4 into Unstable Currents and 1 into Prime Unstable Currents. I really don't have a 5th point, but we don't really need it at this stage. And then our key passive is going to be Enlightenment. And I almost forgot, we max out Ball Lightning into Mage's Ball Lightning because this is a Ball Lightning build. Honestly, we don't even need to put these points, but I'm gonna do this anyway, just for the sake of this being a Ball Lightning build. For the skills, you always want to spam Ice Blades on cooldown, you always want to spam Flame Shield on cooldown, and you always want to spam Ice Armor on cooldown, because these help to get our Enlightenment buff up. Ball Lightning, you can put it on auto cast, or you just cast it all the time. This is the most important spell of our build. Not really because it does a lot of damage, but this is the fastest casting spell Sorcerer actually has, and this just spawns a lot of lightning spears out of our Unstable Currents, and we're mainly doing this as a lightning spear build with Ball Lightning as a trigger. So Unstable Currents, you should have it up 100% of the time, and lightning spear also, you want to cast it on cooldown. Then for our enchantments, Ice Blades enchantment just seems to be mandatory for all Sorc builds which do not run Fractured Winterglass at this point, because you really just need this cooldown reduction, and Teleport enchantment is just the fastest way of getting forwards these days. For our helmet, we get Air of Perdition, and you want to try to get 2 Masterworking crits on Critical Strike if you don't have a Greater Affix. If you have a Greater Affix, 1 crit on Critical Strike is enough here. This item is just way too strong to not play it in any build, pretty much. It's a 60% multiplier. It gives a huge amount of crit. Lucky Hit is nice to have, and Core Skills is obviously also nice to have. Then, for Shroud of False Dares, this is simply the most strongest chess piece you can ever wish for. The all stats is just ridiculously strong. So even if you don't have a greater affix all stats, try to masterwork everything on all stats. This is just absolutely out of control. And obviously the +1 to all passives gives you like somewhere around 50 to 60% damage, I would say. Then for our gloves, we just pay attack speed, critical strike damage, and core skills here. And we want to have lucky hit to freeze and critical strike damage. And we put on our Storm Swell aspect here. Then for our pants, we play Axial Conduit. You could, for example, play T-Ball's Will, or you could play a regular pants with Intelligence. I feel like it doesn't matter all this much, and this helps me so much with Resource Sustain. And actually the extra Chain Lightnings coming out of the very fast cast rate of Ball Lightning, doing quite a bit of damage. So if you want to play Axial Conduit here, you don't need to triple crit this Resource Generation maximum. You know what, it's probably good enough to crit it once. Best stat would probably be in this build damage reduction, but honestly, in this state of the game, it doesn't really matter all that much. Try to get a high chain lightning damage at the very bottom for the unique stat, though. And we play Rakanar's Wake. It just fixes our resistances, gives cooldown reduction, and gives non-physical damage, which gets tripled. And the attacks reduce evades cooldown, just is required for playing the teleport enchantment. You could again play a legendary pair of boots with mastery skill ranks to get more ball lightning damage, but I tried it. I cannot get huge damage out of ball lightning, so I rather get the Rakanar's Wake because this one is boosting my splintering energy, lightning spear damage much more. For a weapon, we ideally want to get a sword with greater affix intelligence, greater affix critical strike damage, and lucky hit to restore resource. And again, ideally we want to add a sword, because at 100% attack speed, or respectively 125 with unstable currents, it's going to have the same attack frames as a dagger, but it gives us a little bit more damage on our splintering energy, and it also has critical strike damage as an implicit, which again boosts our splintering energy just a little bit more. We want a temper chance for ball lightning to cast twice and critical strike damage, and ideally we want to masterwork everything on critical strike damage. We put on shredding blades for just some little bit more damage. And on our focus, we want to have greater affix intelligence, greater affix cooldown reduction ideally, but you know what, greater affix intelligence is going to be just fine. We don't really need crit because we have it on our Air of Perdition. So you want to then temper again, chance for ball lightning to cast twice and critical strike damage, and ideally again masterwork everything on critical strike damage. We want to put on the gravitational aspect. Honestly, you don't even need this. You can also just put on another damage aspect if you like. You have to look how it plays best for you. But again, for the sake of this being a ball lightning damage, I'm gonna go with the gravitational aspect for now. Then we're going to have Ring of Starless Skies. You want to have a greater affix attack speed as possible, then you just need to masterwork it once. Or greater affix critical strike chance is also nice. You want to distribute your masterworking between the two of those. Then Tarasha Ring, really nothing matters but cooldown reduction, and you want to masterwork everything on cooldown reduction ideally. If you have another greater affix non-physical damage, obviously that's nice, but I would rather try to get as close to 25% as possible. And then for our amulet, this is the most important slot, and mine is unfortunately pretty scuffed. So in a perfect world, you would get intelligence, greater affix conjuration mastery, and for example devouring blaze. I cannot find a good amulet, so I have a dead stat on there. The maximum resource doesn't really do anything at all. However, you want to temper total armor here to reach the armor cap and critical strike damage, and ideally you want to masterwork everything on conjuration mastery. We put on the aspect of splintering energy here for the maximum damage for our lightning spears. Again, this is like a hidden lightning spear build. You can put a Storm Swell aspect and put the lightning spear aspect somewhere else, but it just feels like ball lightning will not do the damage, so I like this setup here much more. For the runes, I'm using Tam Zek, which gives us infinite ultimate. And I feel like the condition cast a non-channeled core skill. In this build, we pretty much cast 5 core skills a second. So this really gives a crazy high cooldown reduction on our ultimate here. And for the other slot, I'm playing Liz Cry here. This basically means while we're standing still fighting for 3.6 seconds, it's going to make a vortex. So this pretty much makes a vortex every 3.6 seconds. Since we're just using teleport enchantment for moving and we are not actually moving with our movement, this is basically active all the time. So this condition here is a little bit less than this condition. So if you have good cooldown reduction, you can definitely swap these two to get a little bit more vortex uptime. And for the gems, I'm getting topaz in my armor, I'm getting all skulls for my jewelry so I can hit the armor cap, and I'm using critical strike damage gems in my wand and focus. For the Paragon, I'm choosing Eliminator in my first boss because it just feels like Ball Lightning is not doing the damage it used to. So I feel like this is the strongest glyph you could play in this board because it gives you a lot of multipliers to elites. And it is very efficient to pick up all these int nodes. You really have just this 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes you're actually sacrificing which are not in, so I feel like it's a very efficient way. If for the sake of playing a Ball Lightning build, you want to play a Ball Lightning build, put Adept Glyph there, but I don't recommend it. Then our first board is going to be the Fundamental Release. We just pick up all the damage mods here and we put in our Tactician Glyph to boost the non-physical damage because that essentially gets tripled by Enlightenment. Then we pick up these defensives and these damage to burning damage and crit damage. Crit damage is very important since this is basically a Lightning Spear build at this point. And if you have more points, you can definitely get these defensive passives, but I don't feel like I don't need these at this stage at all. Then our next board is going to be the Destruction board. Our next board is going to be the Burning Instinct board, sorry for that. And we put in our Destruction Glyph here with the maximum amount of dexterity. Again, as we're playing this mainly as a Lightning Spear build, this is the highest amount of critical strike damage we can get. Also, we get critical strike damage from the board, and we can get also critical strike damage in the center, and we can pick up some nice damage reduction all of that over here. And then our next board is going to be Enchantment Master. If you don't have enough points, this is pretty much optional. Like everything in this cluster here is optional. So if you don't have enough points, don't sweat going for Enchantment Master. Just pass through this board here. And we're going to pick our Elementalist Glyph here again for boosting our nodes here, mainly the non-physical damage nodes. And we pick up these for more non-physical damage and attack speed. I would recommend getting these no matter what, but these are really solely optional. Because, you know what, this is just maximum life resistances and some damage reduction. And then Enchantment Master is a good glyph if you have enough points to get it. And then last board is going to be the Frigid Fate board here. We pick up the max life, and again we put in our Unleash glyph here to again boost the non-physical damage mainly and the vulnerable damage. We pick up this damage cluster and we pick up the legendary nodes for the 60% extra damage. For the Mercenary, pretty much as always, I'm using Variana because she gives me a flat 10% attack speed increase with Hysteria, and I really cannot find anything good at all of the other Mercenaries. And then also with Bloodthirst, we're getting another 15% attack speed, like 33% of the time, since this lasts for 7 seconds and has a 22 seconds cooldown. And together with the Enlightenment, which probably has an uptime of like somewhere to 60 to 70%. You know, you're going to have 100% attack speed most of the time. There's going to be very, very slight downtimes in attack speed. But you know what? It's probably not going to be all that dramatic. And then for reinforcements, I always use Rahir with Bastion. I always put in my core skill because I really don't care. I just want to have higher uptime so I can just chill in this Bastion and, you know, do whatever I want, but you can definitely put it like on a condition like when you become injured. I feel like I don't even need this at all at this stage of the game. For consumables in this, I'm just using Elixir of Advantage 2 as pretty much always, because it gives me extra attack speed. We don't really care about the lucky hit. If you struggle with resource, you can definitely swap to Elixir of Resourcefulness, but this just gives me like a little bit more frames on my Chain Lightning casts. And for instance, you know what, it just doesn't matter at all. You're gonna be close to armor cap, so this is just gonna be fine. It depends on your Paragon a little bit, but you can definitely use Song of the Mountain to fix your armor if you're not having so many Paragon points. And then Radaman Buzz is a huge life buff. If you have Shroud of Force Death, you probably don't even need this. And Chorus of War is pretty much just min-maxing. Again, as long as you're playing Shroud of Force Death, you're gonna have all your Paragon requirements anyway. But if you don't have Shroud of Force Death, you might want to play Chorus of War.